Rocky Top Insider presents the RTI Rim Runner with Bob Baskerville and Ryan Shumpert.
Welcome. Time for another edition of the RTI Rim Runner. I'm your host, Bob Baskerville, joined as always, though, by my guy, Ryan Shumpert, Rocky Top Insider. Guy is out covering everything. I'm not even sure. Are you going on the road for the baseball stuff this weekend or no?
No, Jack's going on the road for us, so
Okay.
I'll be on basketball duty. And luckily, the schedule works out pretty well, where it's a very early game on Saturday for baseball, so should be able to help out with some remote coverage, and then roll over to the TBA.
Yeah, kind of a big one on Saturday at this point, I'd say. For baseball, but baseball tomorrow, right, against UCLA on Friday. That's a big one, and then the Vols on Saturday against Alabama for basketball.
Yeah, it should be a big weekend, and tough. Will be a tough Friday for Tennessee for sure. Not that they can't win, but all the more important that they find a way to get the job done in two not extremely difficult games, but certainly losable games on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to it here. We are less than 2 weeks away from championship week, which is going to flow right into Selection Sunday, and then the big dance, the NCAA tournament. And the Vols, like many teams across the SEC and across the country, are bearing down to get situated for the postseason. As for the Vols, their past week had some highs and more recently some lows. And we'll talk about the week that was for Tennessee, along with sizing up the SEC with only a handful of regular season games left. Last weekend, we also got a sneak peek on a national basis of what the Final Four may look like in April. It resulted in a new number one team in the AP poll, not necessarily new historically to the AP poll being number one, but Duke is top of the heap at the moment. We'll discuss what we saw, and we'll also take a look at the first rollout of the top 16 seeds from the Tournament Selection Committee, and then look ahead to another weekend of must-see TV matchups. But before all of that, just want to remind you to like and subscribe this show. If you're watching us on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel, just make sure you hit that like button and certainly subscribe if you haven't already. And also podcast. If you're listening to us that way, that's obviously great. We are available wherever you can find your podcasts or wherever you listen to them. Just make sure you subscribe there, make us part of your normal rotation. And we sure do appreciate all the support that we get for the show and for Rocky Top Insider. Opening tip, Tennessee basketball. The Vols survived Nashville with a big win over Vanderbilt, and then follow up with a return to their old ways, leading to a loss at Missouri. Ryan, the Vandy win, we'll start with that. And that's a few days old now at this point, so we won't dig too deep. Most people are familiar with what happened, but I will say this one was not great for some people's blood pressure. It had a back and forth, 20 lead changes, 7 ties, but the Vols weather multiple storms and grind out a 69-65 win over the Commodores.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting feel where there were so many lead changes, but I was kind of surprised to hear that when, I think Rick sent it in our text thread after the game, because it felt like Tennessee trailed for most of the game. And, on top of that, I don't think Tennessee ever led by like more than 4 or 5, where there were points of the game Tennessee was down by 8 or 9. But, when you start to think back about it and the fact that Tennessee kind of jumped out fast and then reclaimed the lead early in the second half, and it was pretty back and forth from there. So just a really good win, up there with the Houston neutral site and at Alabama is Tennessee's best win of the season. And, really the way Tennessee guarded the final 25 minutes of that game was just stellar. And then, really got contributions up and down the roster. Amari Evans made some big plays. Ethan Bird gave Tennessee good minutes. Certainly Dwayne Brown, about the most they've asked him to do in a game this season. So Tennessee's bench guys really stepped up. And even Bishop Oswell, who's certainly a very cemented role. He has 2 tough baskets that Tennessee goes from down 3 to up 1 in the last, 3.5 to 2.5 minutes of the game. I think it's about when that happened. So a lot of guys kind of stepping out of their comfort zone, or at least just stepping up if it wasn't out of their comfort zone, and playing well for Tennessee.
This one felt to me as much of maybe a Rick Barnes Tennessee basketball culture win as I've seen this season. And I mean, that's kind of a nebulous term, but my point in all that is some of what you just talked about. It felt like so many people contributed to this one. We always expect it from Nate and Jacoby, but all these other guys, Dwayne Brown playing 30 minutes and playing well. The Bishop Boswell back-to-back baskets that you just mentioned. And I think another thing that was key to this was it was the third straight game where Tennessee had committed single-digit turnovers, which may have been a bit of a tease based on what happened against Missouri, which we'll get to in a minute. But that, to me, felt like Tennessee basketball. And you and I talked about it on the radio earlier in the week. I think, like, defensively, too, it felt like that was a game where I was like, okay, this defense is coming around, too.
Yeah, and then definitely just from the standpoint of the first 15 minutes of the game, Tennessee struggled to get stops. And the fact that Vanderbilt had Duke Miles back. I mean, I know Vanderbilt and still isn't playing as well as they had earlier in the season. But, I think from the Vanderbilt perspective, or the Vanderbilt side, a lot of that was, well, they just need to get Duke Miles back and they'll be fine. And Duke Miles played well in this game. Now, he didn't shoot great, but you saw some of the other things that he can do. And even in a game where, he didn't shoot great, he still scores double digits. But Tennessee really just hunkered down. And I think that's where, Amari Evans was good on the defensive end. Ethan Berg gave huge contributions there. I thought Nate, and I thought this before the game too, Nate's kind of a great matchup for Tyler Nickel. Not that Tyler Nickel can't get going, or it's going to be impossible for him to do that in Knoxville here in a few weeks. But just Nate can struggle with athleticism and guys that can take him off the bounce. Well, Nickel doesn't do a whole lot of that. Nate's length, I think, gave him issues at times, or even – I think Mark Byington said it after the game. There were a couple of times where he probably should have shot it, but I think he just felt, he was a little in his head about maybe it was a little more contested than a shot really was. So, I like that comp or that, the Tennessee Rick Barnes type culture win. It doesn't feel like Tennessee has had a ton of those this year. A&M's probably the other one that I would go to, because it really, that game did not feel like Tennessee had any business of winning, and they find a way to win. You could probably argue Georgia too, but this one right up there, if not, at the very, very top.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Nickel too, because going into that game, I was actually concerned about him because he's their best shooter from three. And we've struggled with that from time to time this season. But he was kind of a no-show. I mean, he shot, I think, 8 times and hit 1, but I think that was big because you're right. I think Duke Miles came back and contributed more than I thought he would for his first game back. And then Tyler Tanner is just who he is. Although Tyler Tanner quieted down in the second half too. I mean, the first half he was driving me crazy. I think he shot perfect, like 5 of 5 from the field in the first half. But things slowed down, although he hit that ridiculous 3 in the second half. He and Miles each had one of those.
Yeah, and his was less ridiculous, the one he hit in the first half, but he hit one about 3 steps in front of half court, contested late shot clock in the first half too. So, and that's what I would say. Like, and that was kind of the same thing for the Oklahoma game. It wasn't like Tennessee's defensive success was just a result of Vanderbilt shooting poorly. I mean, they shot 40% from 3, made 9 threes, and as we're talking about it right now, 3 of those threes were very well defended, and shots you would live with being taken every time down the court. So that was all very positive. And I almost, that's why I said the Nate thing when I talk about Nate, that who knows, Tyler Nickel could go off. I mean, the way he went off against Tennessee really both games last year, I'm hesitant to stake a victory for Tennessee against Tyler Nickel too soon this season.
Yeah, no doubt. So that was Tennessee's 9th win in their last 11 games. It felt like I said, maybe a little bit of a tease. The team we're turning a corner, right, in terms of some key areas that have been deficient for us this year. Defensive effort. I mean, defensive effort's usually there, but we haven't been as good defensively as years past, obviously. But then also taking care of the ball. We're seeing some progress there. Well, about that point. You fast forward to Tuesday night where the Vols go to Columbia, Missouri, start strong, but then fall back into the bad habits that we've seen so many times this season en route to a 73-69 loss to Missouri. Oh, man, I was feeling good, Ryan, in the first 5 minutes of that game. I was like, Tennessee was up 14-4. That might have been one of the best starts I've seen from them all season long.
Yeah, I feel like they're starting, at least on the offensive end, it feels like they're getting into this trend where they come out of halves pretty well, and then really taper off. I mean, it happened in the first half at Vanderbilt. Now, I don't think it's coincided with a bad offensive start for the other team, and certainly Missouri had some sloppy turnovers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think like the loss itself is a bad loss by any means, but certainly the way it happened was very frustrating, with the turnovers, with the inability to get stops. T.O. Barrett going off, and I think he's better than his numbers indicate. He's kind of a guy that's really changed the dynamic for Missouri. A little bit. This would be dramatic, but it's a little bit Nate Ament-esque, where in SEC play he's turned the corner and been a guy consistently scoring in double digits, but certainly not a guy scoring 28 points. And I think even that, like, this is a guard that he did it without attempting a three. He just got downhill and he got to his right hand. It didn't feel like that's to me the part that was so frustrating with it, is it didn't feel like Tennessee forced him out of his comfort zone and made him hit a whole lot of difficult shots. So when you combine those things, just those were the two things you were talking about from last week at Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, where it felt like Tennessee was turning a corner, was with defense and with turnovers, and they really faltered in both those areas in Missouri. I think that aspect made losing, was a lot more frustrating than the fact that they just lost the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tennessee, went into halftime 3-point lead. The turnovers, it was kind of an equal opportunity game for Tennessee in terms of turnovers. I think they had 7 in the first half and 8 in the second. But between the turnovers and then Missouri shot nearly 62% from the field in the second half and 50% from three after going 0 for 9 in the first half. And my question to you on that is, because I'm quick to move to, hey, again, the defensive effort has to be better. But also sometimes teams just get into a groove and start hitting shots, and Missouri felt like they did that. But I wanted to, I just heard your words a minute ago, and I think maybe that's the case, because a lot of those shots that they hit en route to that 62% second half shooting performance was T.O. Barrett just getting what he wanted, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I would point to, and not that this was the most important thing, but I did feel like the game was officiated a whole lot differently in the second half, and for the most part on both ends. But Mark Mitchell was getting a lot of calls going to the basket that he wasn't getting in the first half, which I think changed the dynamic a little bit too. So, it was those guys. I wrote about it in the 3 quick takes that, a handful of times this year, or oftentimes when Tennessee's looked its best, you look around and it's Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament scoring 65% of the points for Tennessee or something like that. And that's what it was for Missouri. Mark Mitchell and T.O. Barrett, I think, scored 69 or 70%, something like that. So that was a big part of it. And yeah, like I had the thought at halftime and sent a text to somebody that was like, playing a pretty good team on the road who shoots the ball well from three, and you're 0-9 from three in the first half, and you're up by 3. That's probably not a good sign. And that's where I think the turnovers, you're right. I think you have flipped. I think it was 8 in the first half, 7 in the second half. But either way, same thing, equal opportunity. That's where it was like, Tennessee had a stretch where they turned it over on 6 of 8 possessions in the first half when they were up by 10 and could have. And it wasn't like Missouri was going gangbusters offensively. You could have extended the lead. That's where I felt like Tennessee, as much as any, if you're going to point to offense, where Tennessee lost the game, because certainly Tennessee down by 2 late had some possessions that left stuff to be desired. And I don't disagree with that. But if you're looking at where offense lost the game for Tennessee, to me, it was in the first half, when they really could have. There was no reason that they just take care of the ball, that they're not up by 10 at halftime.
Here's another thought I had on this one. I want to get your thoughts on it as well, because, look, our guys, Gillespie and Ament, they combined for 36 points, but it was not very efficient. They shot a combined, I think, 13 of 35 from the field. And in the first half in particular, it felt like it was not the Tennessee team I'm used to watching. And what I mean by that was it felt like we were kind of pulling a page out of the Alabama playbook. We shot what, 24 or no, how many 3-pointers did we shoot in the first half? It was like half of our, I think 15 of our 30 field goal attempts were from three, which is
14 to 29. You're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, and do we think so? So I'm quick to say, okay, I felt like I said a few minutes ago, Barnes maybe was culpable in this loss too. I think he was. Felt like the offense stagnated multiple times. Mizzou kept throwing that zone at him. So do you think that was because Missouri's actually defensively, they're second in the SEC. I had no idea about this because they're not a great defensive team, but in SEC play, they're second in the conference in 2-point defense. And I guess that's because of their size and everything else. But do you think that was Dennis Gates' game plan? Was like, man, these guys don't shoot the three that well. We'll make them beat us that way.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was, certainly a big part of it, and just it's all the more so when you're going to play that type of length. But it's what we said of like, and Felix Okpara played great, but Tennessee doesn't have a lot of guys inside. If JP Estrella is not out there, that they're going to be able to throw the ball into and score, or get offensive rebounds and score. And JP Estrella is back in this game, but plays very poorly. And I think when you saw sometimes he did take shots, I think you saw the length bother him. So yeah, I think that's the case. I think the fact that it was a 1-3-1 zone too, better attack Tennessee. I mean, we've seen teams go zone against Tennessee all year, more than I can in any recent memory because Tennessee doesn't have much shooting. But against 2-3 zone, you just kind of throw Nate at the middle and let him shoot a contested mid-range jump shot and have the two guys down low to try to rebound. And when Tennessee just gets to that, it's been a pretty, effective or solid enough to attack it. The 1-3-1, there's just not the stuff open in the middle. You got to try to attack in the corners. And, they tried to do that some with Jacoby Gillespie, but there just wasn't enough, other answers. So I do think that you're right. That was a big part of it.
I think a sneaky factor in that game too was, obviously Mitchell and T.O. Barrett were great, but also I'm stunned Jaden Stone didn't score a single point, which again, if you would have told me that at the beginning of the game and said Tennessee would lose, that would surprise me. But this Trent Burns kid, that's like, what is he like? Did they say 7'5"?
7'5", yeah.
I mean, they put him in, and he absolutely. It felt like when he was in defensively, for sure, it kind of got into our guys' heads in the middle. I mean,
definitely.
He
can feel his presence.
Absolutely, because he's athletic enough. You know what I mean? It's not like
better athlete than I expected.
Yeah, it's not like that Olivier Rioux kid at Florida, at 7'9", who can barely move right now. But he had a nice take to the basket, and I just felt like that disrupted us too. I mean, it was. I think Missouri had a pretty good game plan, and then we helped a lot by the way we played. So that was the largest single game turnover number since 3 weeks ago, almost, against Kentucky. It was, like I said, it felt like we had just, as you said, I think on the text thread, we were so optimistic. We felt like we had turned a corner, but doesn't mean we can't get back on track. But that was, boy, it felt like we were back to 2 months ago.
It's just a reminder that it's not. I don't think it's ever going to completely go away. You can manage it, but it's going to be the bugaboo for this team. And the Alabama thing, and you were talking about more threes, but this is what I thought the direction you may be going with it. I just felt Tennessee played, especially in the first half, they just played so sped up at times.
Yeah.
Like they just did, and I felt like that was an issue for them earlier in the year where they played very sped up, especially non-lead guards, especially Bishop, and I guess you'd point to Bishop, Ethan, and Troy Henderson, and that, and maybe Amari Evans I'd throw in there too. Though I didn't feel like he was as big as a problem in this game, and to me it felt like Tennessee had been better at that, of calming down and those guys being more comfortable and playing at the pace, the tempo that Tennessee's gonna play at. But in this game, so many of their turnovers just felt unforced and silly. Though I will say, like, that was the thing too that was disappointing. I think Tennessee had 2 turnovers for the first 8 minutes. Both of those were guys like falling out of bounds after getting a rebound, trying to save it. One of them, JP, clearly got pushed. The 4th turnover was Bishop going up for a shot, getting hit on the arm, and then trying to pass the ball. So it was like it was such a spiral. It wasn't super bad early. Even the first handful of turnovers were kind of ones that are understandable or, should have been a foul. And then it just, Tennessee, it felt like it let those mistakes spiral on them and, get out of control.
Yeah. And the other factor here is I have it further down in my notes, but I think it's germane to bring it up right now is Jalen Carey, man.
Yeah.
10 boards, I get it, 6 on the offensive glass, I think, and that's great. But 0 points, and he was one of the few Vols that had no turnovers, which is kind of phenomenal when you think about the fact that he was so frustrating to watch. But we talked about this last week, but I'll say it again. It's like, is this recoverable for him? I mean, or can we trust him at this point? It feels like Barnes does.
Yeah, I mean, I say what I did last week, which is no.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what I would like to see personally is once JP gets back is 5 to 10 Jalen Carey minutes a game, but you got to give me 5 to 10 minutes with Nate at the 4 too to kind of counteract. And look, last night or the Missouri game Tuesday night, I get why they didn't do it then. I mean, Nate would have had to guard Mark Mitchell, and that would have been a terrible matchup for Tennessee defensively. So, some of these matchups defensive end, I get why they don't do it. And I'm not saying they're clearly not going to go to this as their go-to lineup, but I would just like to see it in some flashes. And yeah, like I will say, like the Carey 10 rebounds was really good. It wasn't a lot of times he Angel reaches his way to a lot of rebounds. That was not the case in this game. When he got offensive rebounds, he did a good job throwing the ball out. But he's just tough offensively. He missed, about a 5-foot runner, very similar to the one he missed at Vanderbilt in a moment where Tennessee really could have used it. He missed 2 free throws, and I just don't think he's that great defensively. So, I'm fine with him playing some and being in the rotation, but I don't like seeing him play major minutes, especially as, hopefully JP Estrella can get back to the way he was playing before he missed some time with the foot soreness. And, Dwayne Brown, I'm sure, will have games where he just struggles, and you can't play him a bunch. But I'd rather go into most of these games with the thought process of giving Dwayne Brown some rope and letting him play through some mistakes, more so than Carey.
One more thing about Carey, because I see a lot of comments on social media about people saying that he looks heavy and out of shape, and I'm struggling to buy into that just because of what we know about Garrett Medenwall and the way he trains these guys and everything. But do we think that that's a factor? Does he look? I mean, he's thick. We've always known that, but he does. Maybe I look back to some video from when he played for Vandy last year. He does look a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I think he struggles once he's out there for a couple minutes at a time. So,
Yeah,
I don't know if that's as far as out of shape, but I think he could be in better shape. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm with you. The whole notion, it just felt like, particularly, we felt it. We're down 2 points with like about a minute to go, and we just can't get anything going. And part of it is this has been brought up by many people on many occasions this season, but the middle was just clogged, and that's
especially those late possessions.
Yeah, and that's the other byproduct of having Carey out there, and so it speaks to what you said a minute ago. It's like maybe get Nate in at the 4 on some of these, make him more of a creator in that spot. I don't know, man. It was a tough one. It was a tough one. I found myself not like super crushed or disappointed by the loss. Missouri's good; they're really good at home, but felt like we could have had that one. There's been a few like that this year.
Yeah, just the fact that they played, it felt like they played, to me, Tennessee played really poorly and had a chance to win, which is to me the frustrating part. Because again, them just losing the game. Missouri's a good team. You're playing on the road. That part wasn't shocking.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to dive into one last thing I have here.
Do it.
I'm getting on more reflection than anything as we get close to the regular season. Tennessee sitting 10-5 in SEC play. Vanderbilt, Alabama at home, and then South Carolina on the road. I think Tennessee's had the hardest schedule in the SEC. Is the take that I'm getting to here. Talk about the 3 teams that they played twice in Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Alabama. All Vanderbilt and Kentucky 9-6, Alabama 11-4, and you go through. There's 8 teams 9-6 and better, so it's kind of a logjam. Of those teams that are 9-6 and better, the only team Tennessee plays, so there's 7 besides Tennessee. Tennessee plays 3 of them twice. The only one they get only at home was Texas A&M. They played at Florida. They played at Arkansas. The two, in my opinion, 2 of the 3-4 best teams in the SEC. Florida, obviously, the best team. They played at Missouri, and then they get A&M at home. It's like all the teams that aren't very good in the SEC that Tennessee's played once, it feels like the most of them they have played on the road. They obviously got Mississippi State. They've got most of those teams at home. They get Mississippi State on the road, or got Mississippi State on the road. They'll play South Carolina on the road. But just a lot of games you felt like, in my mind, I felt like Tennessee would win no matter where they were home games. And then they've had to this point, they still have probably their 2 hardest home games left. But it's like, to this point, Tennessee, Kentucky, it's like the only, and A&M are the only really teams they've played that are any good that they've played at home. So Tennessee has to take care of business next week in Columbia, South Carolina. But if they do that, they go 5-4 on the road. Like, to me, that'd be a very good 5-4 given who they've played. And it was, starting to look at some Alabama stuff last night too. In comparison, it's like, man, has Alabama's schedule been easy? They get Mississippi State and Auburn twice on top of Tennessee twice. Road games against Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, LSU. Like,
Yeah.
it's like Tennessee's third easiest road game is probably Georgia, and that's like the third hardest one for Alabama. So
Yeah.
that's kind of, not that it's really matters that much, but just diving into it, that's something that stuck out. This has been a very difficult schedule for Tennessee.
No, I think it's a really good observation. I hadn't really thought of that, and I mean, here we are with 3 games left in the regular season, and you're right. It's like, 2 of those 3 are still very losable because they're against good teams, and teams that we've already beaten, but that would lead you to believe, Alabama's hot. They've won 7 in a row. I think everybody's kind of the mind. I mean, when I say everybody, I mean kind of the consensus is, oh, well, Rick Barnes owns Nate Oates. Well, you don't think that's on Nate Oates' mind? I mean, I think they're going to come in very, very focused on Saturday. Doesn't mean Tennessee can't win, but I don't see a blowout or anything happening there. This is a tough road for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I would probably pick Tennessee to lose one of these 2 games at home if I had to close the year. Certainly doesn't mean they're not capable of winning, going 2-0, but going to be tough and need a good atmosphere, and a lot of it goes to what I just said. It's not like the home schedule's been very good, but it's been a pretty sleepy TBA this year. Tennessee, Saturday should be a good crowd. Students on campus, 6:00 game, Alabama. Tennessee needs the crowd needs home court to be a big benefit in these last 2 home games to try to get across the line. 7-1 in SEC play, and they are 8-1 SEC play at home, and they do that and take care of business the way they should in Columbia. I think 13-5, especially with this schedule, would be a really solid SEC slate for the Vols.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so a couple of noteworthy things. The Vanderbilt win made that the 5th consecutive 20-win season for Tennessee in the Rick Barnes era. It's also, I think, their 6th. I think I got this right. Their 6th straight conference season with double-digit wins in the conference. So, I mean, that part of it's great. But, I'm thinking about what, the bracketologists right now, seems like they're more comfortable having Tennessee in there as a 5 seed. I know everybody's ambition is, man, we'd love to see Tennessee get to a 4 seed. The Missouri loss probably set us back a little, but there is the ability to control that because, and we'll get to this in a moment, but, Alabama, at least with Joe Lunardi, is the last 4 seed in there. So if Tennessee could beat them and have the sweep, that's going to be a big development. Vanderbilt's in that mix too, and we have got another shot with them. So as tough as those games are, we can control the destiny a little bit of this team. We'll just have to see. I wanted to just touch on, before we dig into that, because what it means in terms of the conference standings and everything else. very quick personnel questions. JP Estrella's status. I come away with, after what I saw in Missouri, doesn't feel like he's all the way back. Or do you think that was just simply rust? I don't know.
Yeah, I would think more rust and like his foot physically bothering him. I don't think they would have pushed it much if it was bothering him. And he does feel like a guy that just the more he plays, he gets more into a rhythm. It doesn't feel like you can kind of drop him out of the sky. And I just pointed out, like, when they inserted him into the starting lineup, like, he didn't really play very good at Alabama. And he was just slowly getting better and better. The guy has not played a ton of minutes. So that's kind of what I tend to lean towards there.
Yeah. Ethan Berg's status. Here we were last week saying, hey, man, feels like he's back. And, I talked with Coach Polinsky on the radio last week saying, pretty awesome, the developments with Ethan Berg. I got to say, when I watched in the Missouri game, because I felt in the Vanderbilt game, I felt like he wasn't a liability. I almost feel like every game I'm like, well, he didn't hurt us. And I don't want to make it sound like he cost us the game against Missouri, but he was not a factor in the Missouri game. So, I mean, I guess we're going to keep seeing Ethan Berg minutes. But, man, that turnover, the one turnover he had was one of many that were pretty inexplicably bad.
Yeah, and then I think that got Troy Henderson in the game, and it took him about a minute to have an inexplicably bad turnover. So, yeah, like I think it's the status. I think it's kind of the status quo of where we were here last week. I thought Vanderbilt was the best he'd played besides the LSU game, I guess. So I think he's that first ball handling guard off the bench. Amari Evans, I think, would be the first guard off the bench, and then it's him. And if he goes out there and takes care of the basketball, I think he's got a chance to play 10 minutes. And if he doesn't, he's probably going to be back sitting on the bench. So it's pretty simple with Ethan Berg playing minutes. That's what Rick wants to see, is him not turn the ball over.
And I guess we're in a world at this point where we probably won't see minutes in a game for both Ethan Berg and Amari Abram. I mean, it feels like what do you think's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little puzzling to me the way he's, just kind of fallen off the face of the earth since getting the flu. I mean, some of it's as simple as there just aren't that many minutes to go around, and he's not going to handle the ball as much. So, and I think he's definitively, for good reason, behind Amari Evans in the rotation. So that makes it a less path. But I don't know. I would just be hesitant to say that we're not going to see him in a game. I would have said, I think everybody would have thought we weren't going to see Ethan Berg in a game 2 weeks ago. And
True.
Rick has a way for these fringe rotation guys to get another opportunity. And I wouldn't be shocked if I'm writing a Friday SEC story game or something like that, and I'm writing about Amari Abram out of nowhere coming off the bench and hitting 2 threes and playing 12 minutes or something, like getting a steal in 12 minutes or something like that.
Got to see him out there with his flow going on, like kind of T.O. Barrett, like with the hair and everything else. That's when he's at his best.
Rick's been of the take, and I like this take, that he says it's ever since he's gone back to wearing 2 sleeves, his minutes have gone down. He's got to go 1 sleeve again.
I like it.
All right, let me go off, and I should have mentioned this for a rundown because I had this thought last night, but then forgot about it. I got a little thought exercise for you. It very much feels like Tennessee will be a 4 or 5 seed, and you mentioned it a second ago. You have Alabama right around there, you have Vanderbilt right around there, you have Arkansas right around there. So it's starting to kind of become more clear who these potential round of 32 matchups will be, because you cannot play a conference opponent in the second round of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at Joe Lenardi right now, his bracketology, the 4 or 5 seeds, you have Texas Tech without Toppin, Michigan State, both those 4s, St. John's, who got rocked last night, and then Ryan Sylvia's Who's of Virginia. Where those 4 teams, that feels like the very popular right now. The other teams on the 4 and 5 line that aren't in the SEC. Do you have a ranking, or do you have a team that you would want to see or not want to see? Like where do you kind of stand with those teams right now?
I think, and maybe I'm not giving Virginia enough credit, but I think maybe Virginia would be the one I'd want to see. They're good, but I'm still teeny bit skeptical. It'll be interesting to see how they do against Duke this weekend at Cameron. That's going to be an interesting test. And then St. John's, and it's not just because of what we saw last night against UConn, because you're right, they got just crushed. This is what happened to St. John's, I thought, last year. And Patino's great coach. They're a fun team to kind of follow, but they're kind of like us in that I don't think they can shoot very well. So I feel like that might be a, kind of similar style type game. I don't want to play Michigan State just because Michigan State in March is just trouble, I think. Texas Tech, I know they don't have Toppin anymore, but something about McCaslin's team and the way he runs offense and everything, that worries me too. I would say my proclivity would be Virginia and or St. John's.
Yeah, I think St. John's is the one that I'd like to see. And it's kind of hard, like, because they are, before last night, pretty convincingly beating these Big East teams.
Sure.
But I like, to me, they just feel like Tennessee, but not as good, or Tennessee without Nate Ament. And that's how I feel that Michigan State is. Like, I feel like they're Tennessee without Nate Ament, and you hope in a game like that Nate Ament can be the difference. But 2 days to game plan Tom Izzo in March certainly makes me uneasy. I really don't like the Virginia matchup. I just think the fact that they can shoot and rebound worries me a little bit. Though, they do have, you kind of point back to like the 2017-18 Tennessee, where it's like your first time kind of back, and it's a new court. It hasn't been there. And in Texas Tech, just kind of, I feel, wait and see. I kind of tend to agree with what you said. Even without Toppin, I'm hesitant to really think that's who Tennessee should want to play, but waiting for a little bit bigger sample size and see them play a little bit better competition without him before I, truly feel strongly one way or another.
Yeah. No, it's interesting though. Because you're right. I mean, it feels like I keep seeing us in many bracketology projections that us a 5 with Virginia specifically as the 4 and in the same region. So that one would be interesting. I just maybe don't know enough about Virginia too. Like you said, it's a new core. I know this DeRitter guy is pretty tough, and I don't know a whole lot beyond that. Other than it feels like Ryan Odom's doing a nice job there, but. We shall see. When we talk about just the setting with the SEC right now, we've talked about it. Florida, Florida's winning the regular season. It's pretty much a done deal. I think 2-game lead with 3 left. They're not going to lose multiple games. There's no way looking at their schedule. You got Tennessee fell out of that second place tie. They're in 4th place. They have sole possession of 4th. But now you got all these other guys nipping at their heels. Vandy, A&M, Missouri, Kentucky, all 1 game behind. And a couple of those teams at the moment have tiebreakers, right, against us that we won't be able to right the ship on between Missouri and Kentucky. Although I think that Missouri and Kentucky both have pretty tough roads in their final 3 games, as I recall. So
I know Kentucky still has Florida and Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
I think that's their final 2 Saturday games. I'm not sure who they get in the midweek.
I want to say, is it possibly A&M? I don't know.
It is A&M, yes.
Yeah.
Just pulled it up in College Station. So they get Vanderbilt and Florida at home, and then go to A&M.
Yeah, so that's again, if Kentucky can go 2-1 in those last 3, I'd be impressed. I think that's going to be very, very hard. So I look at all that, and then that makes me wonder about, could we be falling out of the double bye and into the single bye mode? And I don't know. I guess it's all out there. We just got to see how the Vols handle it all.
Yeah, I think it goes to the reverse too. If Tennessee beats Alabama on Saturday, they'll be tied with the tiebreaker there.
True.
I still like Tennessee's chances. Vanderbilt's got a hard schedule. You look at the teams behind them. Vanderbilt's got a hard schedule. Kentucky's got a very hard schedule. A&M's not playing well. Missouri's schedule is not quite as hard, but still, 3 losable games. So I have a hard time thinking really anyone in that 1 game behind Tennessee range is going to run the table. So, Tennessee, I think, can even survive a loss and still be a top 4 seed.
Yeah. Let's pivot for a few minutes to the national scene. I think, maybe saw what could really be a Final Four preview last weekend, right? Just I wanted to spend a minute or two on these games just because I do feel, Ryan, like that top 3 or 4 in the country. I've been saying all along that 10 teams could win a national title, and that's still possible. But boy, it does feel like there's some stratification where the top 3 or 4 teams are different compared to the rest of the field. We got to see some of that last week. Arizona surprised me, rolled into Houston without Koa Pete, had lost a couple of games, and it felt like all of a sudden people were out on them. But they showed me something with that game, man, because they took care of Houston on the road. I thought that was an impressive win.
Yeah, it was, and like you said, without Koa Pete, and they have Del Orso come off the bench and was just phenomenal in that game. Both are, shocking to Tennessee fans will hear this. Tobe Awaka fouls out. Both of Arizona's front line fouls out in this game, but just still finds a way. And, it wasn't not that Arizona hasn't been good defensively, because they have, but they feel more comfortable in some just getting up and down the court, playing very high tempo more than anything. Because again, it's not that they're a very good defensive team, and this very much did not have that feel. It was a half court slug it out game, and without really any of their stars playing great. Jaden Bradley was good. They find a way to get it done. So impressed by Arizona. I don't think I was as concerned about their 2 losses that they had back to back as and I don't know. People probably weren't even really that concerned, but I was never that concerned. I will say back-to-back losses and changing the subject to the loser. I am, after watching less of, really more went back and watched extended highlights of this game, but watching Houston on Monday night now in Fieldhouse. I am worried about Houston. I'm just not sure they have the, they can make the Final Four, but I'm starting to punt on them as a true national title contender. Just not. They have the Tennessee stretches. Not enough offense.
Yeah, they've lost. So to your point, they had lost 2 straight after the Arizona loss. They went and lost their 3rd straight in Fog Allen Monday night against Kansas. And it was funny because they did. Now that you mention it, there were some serious Tennessee through lines to the way they played. Because if you remember, they came out and they popped Kansas early. I was like, man, my sidekick on radio, Russell Smith, texted saying, I think it was partly because he bet on the game, but he was like, okay, Houston's doing what they do. And it's like, man, I said, it's very well chronicled by now. The Bill Self on Big Mondays at home, he's undefeated. So I was saying that before the game. I was like, I'd bet Kansas if you're going to wager something. And sure enough, Kansas took care of it. But when's the last time we could say Houston's lost 3 in a row? It's kind of like, again, it's kind of like Tennessee.
Yeah, and I think they went 8 minutes in the Arizona game without a field goal in the second half. Because really, Arizona controlled that game early, controlled most of that game, and then Houston went on a run first 6 minutes or so of the second half and took the lead, and then just the offense just couldn't find anything. They haven't gotten that step from Milo Suzanne Emmanuel Sharp's numbers are better, but it doesn't feel like he has the creating ability in some of these tougher games. And same thing against Kansas, where he said they came out fast, but their offense really around halftime, it felt like maybe the 5 or 6 minutes around halftime on both sides offensively were very bad. But you just go down the schedule, like you look at the 5 losses that Houston has, and it's the 5 hardest games they've played. Like, you search for the good wins. Texas Tech at home, good win. At BYU, good win. But, and some other solid wins at Baylor, at TCU, Auburn in Birmingham, so mostly an away game. Arkansas on a neutral site. But it feels like when they've played that top-line competition, they haven't been able to get it done this year.
All I could think about in that game, too, was I do think a guy who's kind of surging, and it feels like in terms of draft consideration, his name's popping up, too. There's 2 guys that were in that game. One is Chris Sinak with Houston, And then Braden Burris with Arizona, all of a sudden Burris is starting to get his name mentioned in lottery conversation too. I mean, and I just sit there thinking, God, if Tennessee could have gotten one of those two, because I know they were in on both of them, but to no avail. But boy, those guys are players.
Yeah, Burries especially from when you
Yeah.
just look at what Tennessee's needs are.
Yeah.
And certainly Senak's a really good player and would help, but I don't think he fixes a ton of Tennessee's issues.
Yeah, that's true. Then that same Saturday evening, talk about it felt like a throwback, deep Final Four vibes I got at least. Michigan, top ranked at the time, facing at the time number 4 Duke on a neutral court, no less. You had brought that to my attention last week. They were going to play in DC. That felt like Final Four stuff right there. I mean, two teams that have done it a lot, and I was impressed with Duke. I go back and forth with them. Sometimes I feel like, God, they're just a one-man team with Boozer, but I felt like they took the fight to Michigan, which is saying something because Michigan's got all that size and everything else.
Yeah, I think if you're just going to look at the the box score without team stats, it would have felt that way. Cameron Boozer leads the team with 18 points, leads the team
Yeah.
with 10 rebounds, leads the team with 7 assists. But I think it's that second part you said it's so on the nose, like just the physicality that Duke played with. They dominated the boards in this game against, just a really not necessarily that Michigan's been an elite rebounding team, but they're just an elite front line, and they have elite size. And the way Duke kind of punched them in the mouth there, and it felt like their physicality dictated the game in a lot of ways. Outscored them points in the paint. Like, you haven't seen many teams do that to Michigan this year. So I'm with you. I've been back and forth on Duke. I still worry about some of their secondary options behind Cameron Boozer, especially in the backcourt, and especially if Isaiah Evans is not shooting the ball well from 3. But I'm starting to trend more towards thinking it's just that they're boring, more than it is that they're not really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And Evans and Caleb Foster, those two alone, that's where I think Michigan, I was trying to look at, maybe I don't want to just place it on one game, but it was a game against someone who was very, very good opponent. Can their guards possibly fail them in March? Because they had 5 guards that only scored 15 points combined compared to Foster and Evans combining for 26. It's we know Michigan's just super impressive up front. We know that, but you start trying to look for things that, because we've been talking about Michigan, I remember earlier in the season, I was like, man, will they lose it all this year? But, and their guards are good. It's not like they've got scrubs in the backcourt, but it just feels like if you're looking for something that might be a place to exploit Michigan, it might be there.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, this is probably not a fair comment to make because he is vastly improved and he's had a really nice year, but there's still just, for me, an element of, do we really trust Elliot Cadeau?
Yeah,
that's the lead guard on this team, and he is much better than he was at North Carolina a year ago. But I don't know. There's an element that it's just tough to really trust him, and certainly he struggled shooting the ball on Saturday. And give him credit, he took care of the basketball. Had I think 6 assists, but it's just that's kind of the overhanging question. You're right. If you're going to get Michigan, Michigan's going to falter. It feels like that's why.
Yeah. Well, with that win, Duke just feels like it's not a college basketball season if Duke's not number 1 at some point in the AP poll, and that's where they are now. Followed by Arizona, Michigan, Iowa State, and then Houston rounds out the top 5. No big surprises there. But I did want to take a minute or two and talk about this. It's kind of old news right now because another release will happen this coming weekend. But the committee put out their top 16 seeds for the big dance. And, you look at the 1 seeds and there's no surprise. And actually, I think even with some of the action that happened this week, I wouldn't see that changing. The top 4 seeds, in no particular order, though, at this point: Michigan, Duke, Iowa State, and Arizona. I don't really have a qualm with any of those, particularly based on what we're seeing with Houston, like you said, Ryan, starting to slip a little bit.
Yeah, agree. And UConn too. Obviously, really
Yeah.
nice win for them last night, but it's just not like they've been dominant in or in Big East play, and they dropped the game to Creighton last week at home, which was felt a little bit inexplicable. So what we expected. I think Duke, Michigan, Arizona are as set as you can be as one seeds, and to me, it feels like that fourth spot's still a little bit up for grabs.
Speaking of, well, you mentioned UConn and then Creighton. A little fun fact. I don't know if we've talked about this before because I got more texts last night from people because they were on TV against DePaul. Everybody keeps saying my doppelganger is Greg McDermott.
Yeah, I mean we've been saying that for 2 years now since I think Rick and I were sitting in that press conference room in Detroit, I guess is where that was the day before the game. I mean, it's
Oh, the Tennessee game?
yeah, Tennessee game, and it was like after it, we're like, yeah, he looks. It's because it's obviously you've seen him. I've seen him many times before, but just seeing him in person, y'all have very similar builds too. Very tall guys with wide shoulders.
Well, it could be worse.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying I look like Donnie Tyndall or something
Yeah.
like that. With all due respect to Donnie Tyndall, but anyway, I digress. The two seeds that they put out, they make sense. We mentioned UConn and Houston; they're two seeds, and then Illinois, and then Purdue. The one thing about Illinois, though, man, Illinois, and we are both Illinois fans in terms of the style of play and everything. They lose. They've been losing a lot of close games in overtime recently.
Yeah, they have. I don't know how much concern I have about that, especially even though they lose the close game to UCLA in overtime with him. But getting Kylan Boswell back, last
Yeah,
I think that was maybe a week and a half ago or so now. He's just a guy that I trust from a controlling the game and having an additional defender on the perimeter, which it felt like they were missing. So the Illinois' losses don't really concern me that much. Though a bad last possession at UCLA, way too good of a shot allowed.
yeah. The whole Tyus Edney flashback moment for Donovan Dent, man, that was how they let Dent drive the length of the floor like that. Kind of like, well, you know what?
Well, Jordan Gainey,
Jordan Gainey, right?
Yeah. So,
and then the fourth two seed is Purdue. And of course, people that know me know I've got some. I follow Purdue. I grew up following Purdue. I know they're playing better right now. I still don't have a whole lot of faith in that team. They can't play defense at all. They're fun to watch offensively sometimes, but I just don't feel like they got enough. So I'll be surprised if they can hang on to a 2 seed, to be perfectly honest with you. The way Florida's coming on and the way Kansas can play if Peterson's playing, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, I especially with Florida, I feel like, I look at this right now and just these four regions that they had, and kind of expanding our conversation earlier. Vanderbilt's one of the 4 seeds, and then Virginia, Texas Tech, and Michigan State. Like, I would very much want to be in the South region even though I don't know about Texas Tech. I like Tennessee's chances of if they can get past that second game, making a run a lot more. And the opposite, the Midwest, I don't like that Virginia matchup, and boy, do I hate the possibility of Michigan in the Sweet 16. I just think it's a terrible matchup for Tennessee. So that's kind of the one I would say. And then as I look at it too, the West region with Arizona, Purdue, Gonzaga, Michigan State. I'd be shocked if Arizona didn't make the Final Four out of that. Like, that's when I look at these right now. And it's the top 4 seeds, most likely teams to make a run to the Final Four. The West region's the one that I feel most confident that it would in one team, and that would be Arizona.
Yeah. Now that South region, you're right, with Iowa State, UConn, Nebraska, Texas Tech. That does feel like that could be gettable for Tennessee to at least win a few games and get to the Sweet 16 and then see what happens.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Sweet 16, and maybe this is silly, maybe Duke, Tennessee truly just could not beat, but I would rank the teams like the 1 seed projections that I'd want to see least for Tennessee: Michigan, then Duke, then Arizona, then huge gap to 4, whether that be Iowa State, UConn, or maybe Houston finds a way to get there. They're 6 right now, but doesn't feel likely after they've dropped 2 games since this top 16 seeds was dropped.
Yeah, and it just caught my eye. I hadn't even noticed this. That East region projection, again, that'll change likely with Vanderbilt having lost to us. But the 1 through 4 seeds, Duke, Illinois, Kansas, Vanderbilt, we've played them all.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's wild.
Tennessee's played a lot of teams, and just for not being many SEC teams in here, Tennessee's, I guess, more at the top 2 top. They haven't seen anybody in the bottom, but they've played some challenging non-conference games.
Yeah, and I mean, again, based on what we've seen, like from Lenardi, I'll just use him as an example. He's got Vanderbilt's in here as they're the next to last 4 seed in this one, but you would assume that would change. He has Alabama as the last 4 seed in his group of 16. So again, there's some things in front of Tennessee. They just got to go take care of them. And that's a good segue into looking ahead because, again, so much riding on the game on Saturday evening at this point, Ryan. Number 17, Alabama comes to town, 6 p.m. game, ESPN game. Should be a sellout. What do you think? We were wondering about this. Do you think Tennessee is? I haven't seen any sort of point spread. Maybe Ken Palm's done something, or Torvik has. Somebody has. Have you seen any spread on this one based on their projections?
Yeah, let's see. Updated Tennessee by 3 is what Ken Palm has. Tennessee by 4.5 is what Torvik has.
God, that feels like a lot to me, but I mean, I know the home court accounts for some of it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I will say Alabama. Let's see if I can just find this box score. But Alabama shot really well last night, which I always like to see before a team plays Tennessee. 22 of 50 from 3. Mississippi State hit 15 threes last night and lost by 25, which is truly insane.
How many shots did Josh Hubbard take? I always love seeing that.
Surprisingly, only 13. He did not take that many shots last night. A quiet game for him. He only had 11 points. He was outshot by Aker. I don't think that's how you pronounce his name, but the old Sanford guy that went to Kansas State. He took 14 shots last night. So, I would reckon that's probably the first time that's happened this season.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'll be in attendance. I know you're going to be there too. That's a big one, man. I just excited to get to it. And besides that game, God, and we've talked about this. Hats off to the Big Ten, man, because Thursday and Friday night, they've got massive games. Tonight, Michigan State at Purdue at 8 p.m. Okay, big game there. 2 of those teams, both all these teams we're getting ready to talk about, these 4 are in the top 16 so far. Okay, and then Friday night, this one could be entertaining as hell. Number 3, Michigan at number 10, Illinois. Got some games to watch on Thursday and Friday night.
Yeah, I'm especially excited for Michigan, Illinois on Friday. And yeah, I mean, we've said it, like, I wish the SEC would do this a little bit more with maybe a Friday and one singular Friday and one singular Sunday game, or at least one of them. I get they like women's basketball to be the main event on Sunday, so I can respect that. But give us a Friday night game. You don't have to change anything with the schedule. Let's just have the teams play on Tuesday, and it's the normal rest that they would have if it was a Wednesday, Saturday game. It's not like Thursday night football or something like that where you're really thrown off to the rest for a team. You don't have to do that to do this. So would like to see that.
And then Saturday, just pure fire. I mean, it starts at noon. And this, to me, I'm going to rattle off these games, Ryan, and I want to get your take. Which one interests you the most? I'll tell you which one interests me the most. This is the noon game. We talked about Virginia at Duke, number 11 Virginia at number 1 Duke. I want to see what Virginia is made of in this type of setting against Duke. The Big 12 has great games as usual. Texas Tech at Iowa State at 4 p.m. Kansas at Arizona at 4 p.m. Villanova at St. John's at 8 p.m. And I just want to see how St. John's responds. Villanova's tournament team as well. So be interesting to see what happens there. And then Gonzaga got a late night game, 10:30 Gonzaga at St. Mary's. St. Mary's always seems to be up for these kind of games. Any of these catch your eye? Like, which one interests you the most?
Yeah, I think I would probably. I think I'm with you on Duke, Virginia, and then the other one I would say is Kansas, Arizona. Can Kansas, they've had some great wins. Can they go on the road and be really competitive? I think will be telling. But no, if you have no responsibilities in your life, like just flip on ESPN on Saturday. The ESPN slate on Saturday is Virginia at Duke. I mean, you've named all these games, but still going through. Vanderbilt at Kentucky, Kansas at Arizona, Alabama at Tennessee, Arkansas at Florida, and then Gonzaga at St. Mary's. I mean, that is just a pretty incredible run on one network of just game after game of complete fantastic matchups.
Yeah, well, it's fitting. It'll be almost March when that day of games happens. But in the SEC, again, showtime there too. Obviously, Tennessee, Bama, which we just talked about. Vanderbilt at Kentucky is interesting, namely because that's at 2 p.m. Kentucky needs that game, man. And it's going to be interesting to see if they can win in Lexington against Vandy.
Yeah, it will be. I almost think more important for Vanderbilt. I don't know. Kentucky kind of feels like Kentucky is what they are at this point. Can Vanderbilt, we got a good home win, against Georgia to steady the ship a little bit, but can they get back to looking like they did early in the season?
Yeah. Texas and Texas A&M in the afternoon. That's a blood war game, obviously, but it's important because both teams are fighting for seeding in Nashville and then beyond. I think Texas A&M's probably, a couple weeks ago they might have been comfortably in the field of 68. It feels like they're kind of bubble-licious at this point. Would you agree?
Yeah, agree. They feel like they've kind of fallen off a cliff. So yeah, completely agree.
And then the one at 8:30, which you mentioned earlier, Arkansas at Florida. First of all, this I feel is maybe the only remaining game that's losable for Florida in their schedule. But here's the thing. Florida wins that game. Arkansas loses. Tennessee beats Alabama. Lo and behold, we're back in a three-way tie for second place. That's the way I'm trying to look at it positively, Ryan.
There you go.
And then Monday night, man, the Big 12 just never disappoints. Number 4, Iowa State at number 2, Arizona, 9 p.m. on Monday night. So what a weekend, man. It's going to be crazy.
It is fully packed, and, last Saturday, the regular season is almost always great. So it's nonstop now.
Yeah, it sure is. Sure is. Well, that does it for this week. We'll be back next week to report on the latest with the Vols. Obviously, there's going to be a lot to talk about, as well as all the other happenings in college basketball. We appreciate you checking us out. Again, a reminder, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're listening to us as a podcast, make sure you download us wherever you listen to your pods. And always keep it locked in on Rocky Top Insider at rockytopinsider.com. And on all socials for the very best in Tennessee athletics coverage. Shump, as always, love doing this with you. Appreciate you spending time, and hope you have a good weekend ahead covering the boys.
Yeah, thanks. Hopefully we'll it's kind of a classic. You can see it coming, the big win on Saturday. You knew that we weren't going to have such great vibes with another road trip. So we'll see a little easier road trip in the midweek next week if Tennessee can find a way to get it done at home against Alabama Saturday.
Yeah, let's do it. Again, to all of you out there, thank you very much for giving us some of your time. Have a great college hoops weekend. Get in front of those TVs, people. And we'll see you next time with a brand new episode of the RTI Rim Runner.